Thank you for choosing Psychology 11th edition for your AP Psychology course. Let's look at our goals for today. Ultimately, the purpose of this professional development session is to prepare you for using Psychology 11th edition in your AP Psych classroom. We will do an in-depth review of the textbook and its resources, and make sure you have a full understanding of the program. Before we do that, we will quickly review the AP course and exam. We will end with reviewing the technology components of the program. Before we get started, let's take a look at the elements of the Psychology 11th edition for AP program. Please note that some materials are optional add-ons. If you are interested in adding them to your order, please contact your sales rep. We're going to start by taking a quick look at the AP course and exam. Before you begin teaching an AP course, head to AP Central on the College Board website. From there, you'll be able to navigate to the AP Psych homepage. Here, you'll find lots of documents to read through, including the AP course description and teacher's guide. The course description contains an introduction to the course overviews, standards, and information about the exam with sample questions. As you can see, the various content areas are distributed fairly evenly on the multiple choice portion of the AP exam. The exam is divided into two sections. Section 1 is multiple choice and lasts 70 minutes, during which time your students will answer 100 questions. This accounts for 2/3 of their overall score. The second section is the 2 free response questions, which students are given 50 minutes to answer. This will be 1/3 of their score. We have now reached the end of video 1. Please answer our quick questions that follow before moving to the second video. This video will focus on the pedagogy of the student edition. The 11th edition of Psychology closely mirrors the AP curriculum. You can find a downloadable correlation within this training video. The text is divided into chapters, and each chapter contains sections, and after a few sections you will find review problems. And, as always, the text follows the 8 guiding principles that are the cornerstone of all Dave Meyer's textbooks. Those guiding principles and goals of the text are listed here. Another hallmark of Dave Meyer's is that he adds over 1,000 new citations to each new edition of his text, so you'll find that this is the most up-to-date psychology book for your students to use. For this course, we'll focus on one chapter to make sure you understand all of the pedagogy and resources for the book. We will walk you through Chapter 7, which is focused around learning. Each chapter opens with an opening story to get students interested in what they're about to learn. David Meyer's writing style is one of the most praised, and he has the ability to connect with his students. You can assign this as pre-reading for the chapter and ask your students to keep journal entries that ask them to apply the story to their own lives. Each chapter is divided into sections, which are denoted by the purple box. The sections are numbered, so the first section of Chapter 7 is 7-1. Each section starts with a learning objective, so your students know exactly what their goal is for the reading. If you assign reading outlines to your students, make sure to tell them to build their outlines around the learning objectives so they are able to use it as a study tool for the AP exam. The learning objectives are revisited later in the chapter. We'll take a look at that in a second. Any key terms that your students should know are located in the margins of the student text to make it easy for your students to flip through their text and use what they need. Some teachers create a word wall in their classroom to make it easier for their students to memorize the key terms, or you can ask your students to create flashcards to use as a study tool. At the end of each section is a feature called Retrieval Practice to make sure students have retained what they've read. You can use Retrieval Practice as an exit slip at the end of class to make sure your students have understood the day's lesson. It also makes great practice before the AP exam. At the end of every few sections, you'll find a review. The review has 2 components: learning objectives and terms and concepts to remember. These are great assignments for your students. At the end of the chapter, you'll find a self-test. Assign this to your students before the end of chapter test as review work and use it during the AP exam review. The questions are focused around each section, so if your students are struggling with certain questions, it should be simple for them to figure out where to go in the chapter to find the answers. Please answer the quick questions that follow this video before moving on to Part 3. Now we'll take a look at the teacher resources that have come with your adoption. Before you teach each chapter, be sure to download your teacher resource materials, which are found online. The link is included in your chapter planning document, which is available at the end of this course. A login is required, and as an adopter, you should have received your login information. If you didn't, please contact your sales rep. For each chapter, the following materials are assigned in both PDF and Microsoft Word format. You'll receive downloadables of all the photos, tables, and figures in your chapter to use in assignments and to project to your students. You'll also receive the images in a PowerPoint format if you choose to use that to show materials to your students. We'll take a more in-depth look at what is in the Instructor Resource Manual, Lecture Guide, Lecture Slides, and Professional Development video now. The Instructor Resource Manual contains everything you'll need to plan your class. It contains details to create a lecture and discussion on the topics within the book, and if you download the Word document, you can edit this lecture to suit your needs. It also contains classroom exercises to do with your students. In the Instructor Resource Manual, you will also find handouts to print and give to your students. These can be used anywhere, as homework, a class assignment, done individually or in groups. Be sure to download these and review them when you're doing your lesson planning. The answers to the handout are found in the lecture guide, which we'll look at now. Besides answers to the handout, the lecture guide contains lectures to use for each learning objective. If your students are struggling with any of the learning objectives, turn to the lecture guide for more details on how to integrate it into your classroom. The guide is normally used with the lecture slides, which we'll look at now. The lecture slide is a downloadable PowerPoint presentation that you can use and edit in your class. It contains images from the book and a script. You can edit it to your needs, or you can print it as an additional handout for your students to use as a note-taking outline or a review. Finally, we also provide you with a professional development video to watch before you start teaching. The professional development video is for you, and covers exactly what you need to teach in each chapter. Most are under 20 minutes, so you can watch them the night before class. Be sure to watch these before you begin planning your course. Thank you again for choosing Myers Psychology for your AP Psychology course. You are now ready to start the chapter planning document for Chapter 7 of Psychology 11th edition. A BFW trainer will send you a certificate of completion and answer any additional questions that you have.